Getting hit multiple times coming out of that bike section. More drivers coming to blows. Well, hello and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back here to Slow Motion Broadcasting, and welcome back to the Formula V Weekend Warriors. This is round number 11 of this season, coming to you today from Lédenon. My name is Ron Maunz, and alongside me, working the comms and the cams, is Joshua Wilkie. Well, Josh, for the second to last round of the season, we head off to a track that always kind of confuses me. It looks like an alien's legs. The track has so much elevation change that you think it's built into the side of a mountain. And today, with some rather high track temperatures, what we usually expect for this event, which is confusion, is going to be confused in and of itself. I never really know what to expect when we head off to Lédenon, and I feel like today is just going to be another shining example of that.
Yeah, absolutely, and I agree. I'm not exactly sure what shape that is, or if it makes aliens' legs, but I can't really make rhyme or reason of it. I actually really do like driving around this place. It throws up a unique set of challenges for sure for a driver. You can see Alain Degassis going through one of the more difficult corners there, being the final corner that's really cupped out and really kind of catch the car, so sort of begs you to throw yourself into it, which can of course end in disaster every once in a while if you don't get that just right. Alain Degassis is actually leading us right now in qualifying, 8 minutes into a 15-minute session here. Chris Montgomery just behind him, 9. Actually, Alain Degassis now just getting pipped by Chris Montgomery there, the S1 driver, going to pip him by 16 thousandths of a second. So once again, Ron, in the FV universe, we are dealing with the finest of margins.
Yeah, that's pretty much just as we expect here in this series. It's always incredibly close, and I think that closeness can be reflected somewhat in the championship point standings as we head our way towards the end of this season. Not a lot of time left for drivers to make inroads when it comes to their respective challenges for the title, but here's how it looks in your points. Tortello is your current championship points leader in the Spec 1 category. Things have been a little bit harder to pin down in that class week to week, but as we usually expect, the same sort of themes, the same sort of general tone of that class has remained the same. Tortello, your reigning champion, looking for another. Guido Marzucchi, though, he's been kind of the main challenger to Tor throughout the season. Already a couple of wins. He slotted P2 in the points. We'll see if he may be able to rock and roll here at Lédenon. Josh Justice is in third, a driver that we usually expect to really kick it in the Spec Racer Fords where he runs a car like that in real life. But in these Formula Vs, he is very, very good in them. Michelle Lynn, former Formula driver herself in real life. Of course, Weekend Warriors admin here in the Formula V side of things is in fourth with Sam Chapman, Brian Stasinski, Chris Montgomery, Angel Soto, Nate Coliseo, and Parvinder Ladar running at your top 10 in the Spec 1 points. We'll take a little gander now, shall we, at Spec 2, where talking about things being a little bit hard to pin down. That's Spec 2 in a nutshell. 3 points is a gap between Martin Vister and Jason Grider, and there's only 1 point between Grider and Hansen. This has been one of the more competitive seasons that I've seen in recent memory here in the Spec 2 category. Josh, I know you always like talking about the Spec 2 class. It is just so disgustingly competitive in that class. Even the fight between Stephen Westcott and Dan Stasinski, although it is about 100 points between those drivers, Westcott may stick his nose into that battle for the top 3 as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Super tight in S2 there. I didn't actually realize till just now how close it really is, so we'll be keeping a pretty good eye on those drivers in S2. Also in Masters, very, very competitive stuff over here as well. Bit of a different point spread, of course, but Jim Brewster going to be leading that one, missing our last couple rounds. He was actually potentially going to join us up in the booth today, but had some other business to take care of, so not going to make it this week. Maybe we can get him up there next week, but he is leading the Masters class here, just in front of Alain Degassis and Kurt Nunez in third. Wayne Buttermore will bring around fourth. Fifth place, Nick Tullo, Andrew Love in sixth, Gary Kittle seventh, Antonio Reese eighth, Paul Goradishi in ninth, and Jorg Manny will round out the top 10 in the Masters class. Not quite as close there, Ron, but close enough that some things can still happen there, at least in the podium positions.
Yeah, so still certainly competitive with many of the championship battles that we have here as we get towards the end of this season. Before we get too lost up in the action of what is going to be a very thrilling day of action, do want to thank Wayne Buttermore and BFI Consulting for making this broadcast possible here for round number 11 of the Formula V Weekend Warriors. Thanks, Wayne. He's out there on the racetrack right now, not actually there on track currently, but he is going to be running in this event. 20 cars running here today. And we'll have to see if we can have a chat with him here in the not too distant future if he does pop in for a little interview before we get rocking and rolling here in this race. A little bit compact in here with the start of this show. Of course, if you missed it a bit earlier on here today on SMB, we're able to broadcast the 2026 Campbell Veterans Memorial Foundation charity race. That was a pretty fun event to be a part of. 90-minute long GT3 race there at Road America, going from a 90-minute long Mustang GT3 race to a 30-minute long Formula V race in France. I don't think we could get farther apart geographically and otherwise, Josh.
Yeah, that's a bit of a trip that we took in about 5 minutes there, isn't it? From all the way down there in Road America to all the way out here in a very, very different racetrack in a very, very different part of the world. You see that undulation on that corner there. Wow, there's a lot of elevation around here that perhaps isn't quite as apparent right away when you look at it without getting the proper camera angle there. But just in the wee hours now, nobody left on track at the moment. I don't believe. Perhaps Brian Shazinski is out there. I do believe I hear a V motor whining itself to death here, and there he is. He's going to do some donuts for us here in the final minutes of qualifying. See if he can't burn this motor down for us here. But yeah, I believe that today's race again is going to be about kind of who practiced this track a bunch. I think, Ron, it's a bit of a technical beast out here, and as we can see here, Brian Shazinski finding the limits of the track. That's what you're going to want to do here before you actually get out and race this track in anger. You're going to want to know every inch of it.
Yeah, you certainly want to know this track like the back of your hand before you try and tackle it, as Brian Stasinski there. I looked away from my screen for literally a second, and I see Stasinski there on the infield. Actually, no, he's against the wall there on the actual part of the racetrack with a blown motor, a meatball flag.
Whoops.
This is why I need a second monitor, I think. Otherwise, I would have been able to catch
Boom.
that sort of... Hey, that's a quick way to stop the car. Who needs brakes? We just need a barrier.
Well, that was some funnier things I've seen in a little while on here. Motor just whining out there. I don't think he was bothering shifting gears, lost the nose of the car, and just decided to punt it straight into the wall there. So that is some kind of fun you can have in the sim here, obviously, and we like to do that in the Weekend Warriors quite a bit. Make sure you join us at the end of this race when we attempt to burn down all 20 FVs at the same time.
Yeah, I know there's going to be some infield. See, it's either going to be the little shenanigans in the very accessible infield around this racetrack. You can shortcut this track big time just by running through the runoff area, or it'll be down pit lane with those sort of like steps down there where you can vault off of it. It is an odd racetrack for many reasons. The high elevation changes. Look at that looks like that makes a corkscrew at Laguna Seca look like a small little step down. That is absolutely insane. But let's take a look at your starting grid here, shall we, for round number 11 of this season of Formula V Weekend Warriors competition. It's going to be Chris Montgomery starting from the pole. Alan Degassis, a Masters driver, will join him on the front row. Guido Marzucchi going to start this race in third. Next to him will be Brian Stasinski. Tortello will start this race in fifth. Next to him will be Trip Isley, part of Weekend Warriors. Weekend Warriors and Formula V royalty in real life. He's going to line up sixth here in this race. Paul Korodeski will start this race in P7. Next to him will be series admin Michelle Lynn. Kurt Nunez will start this race in ninth, with Ethan Orr completing your top 10.
Yeah, and then we have Martin Visser in 11th. Definitely wants to get a good result today. So close in points. Brian Hansen just behind him in 12th place, also hunting for some points today. Stephen Westcott in 13th place in the 225. Nick Tullo will be your 14th place driver. Angel Soto in 15th. Gary Kittle 16th. George Aaron in 17th. Joshua Justice in 18th. 19th place will be Jason Grider, and 20th place will be Wayne Buttermore, BFI Consulting, and our sponsor for today.
And so there you see 20 Formula Vs set to grab the green flag here in a couple of moments' time. The drivers lining up on this provisional starting grid before we get that short pace lap up, rocking and rolling. I've mentioned it already here on this shun. We received some forewarning before we got too lost up in the action here that it was going to be a toasty one. 116 degrees Fahrenheit at the moment for the track temperature. Now, that's not the worst that I've ever seen, but it is pretty bad considering that the ambient temperatures are 65. That is such a strong disparity between those, and the wind is pretty much still. So it's going to remain this way for quite some time. Really not a cloud in the sky. A beautiful day unless you're looking to do some sunbathing and you forgot your chair, so you have to lay down there on the asphalt. Cooked back does not sound like a good way to spend your time here in the French countryside. But let's get up and rolling. Already a very jumbled up start there. Chris Montgomery, I thought, jumped in a little bit early, stacking up the field behind as they head their way onto the start finish straight away, waiting for that green flag to come out here for round number 11 of the Formula V Weekend Warriors. The green flag flies and the drivers are on their way. Good start there from Montgomery, farther behind Marzuki, looking to try and get some moves done. That's himself and Alan DeGas is how we're side by side, and Tortolo looking to stick his nose into that as well. Keep an eye as well on that bright green machine of Brian Szynski, looking to cut his way through the field like a hot knife through butter. Series admin Michelle Lynn going side by side as Ethan Orr and Kurt Nunez side by side as they head their way out of 4 down into the downhill hairpin of 5 for the first time. Oh,
and a spin just behind Michelle Lynn after she got that move done on the inside there, and that's going to take out a few drivers, Ethan Orr being at least one of them here, I believe. Unfortunately, the 22 is going to get caught up in that one. Not exactly sure who spun there right off the bat, but we will go back and have a look at it, just asking maybe a little bit too much of the car. Just watching, I believe that was Michelle Lynn up the inside there, keeping the car nice and clean and keep staying away from that particular incident here so far. But now looks like JG here is going to have a little bit of a comeback tour beside, I believe that is Joshua Justice.
Yeah, unfortunately, I believe the driver that was spun in all of that was Paul Korodeski. That's unfortunate for him as he headed his way out of turn number 5. That turn is just a titanic pain in the hind end, and certainly doesn't help when there is a little bit of contact. It's tricky to go side by side through there because in these Formula Vs, that uphill climb afterwards is no mean feat. If anyone's ever that's a driver actually spun off the track heading through the final turn. I believe that was the newcomer George Alhorn in the 309 car. He's gone off the circuit, now rejoining. Talking about the elevation change of this racetrack, if anyone has ever seen the karts track at Atlanta Motorsports Park, an insane track with like steep banks, everything that you want. Oh no! Marzuki gets sent upside down after a sideways snap from Montgomery. That's going to send Guido on his lid and out of it. And that, I believe, considering the tightness up at the top, it was already looking good for Tor. That may very well have just won Tortolo a second championship in a row.
Yeah, that was, again, Chris Montgomery and Guido going tooth and nail. They're having a really good race, and unfortunately the level of grip on the 33 just going to let go on him in sort of a strange way there. He was kind of trying to keep it a little tight, maybe asking a little much of the car, but just flipped Guido right onto his onion there in the grass, and he's unfortunately not going to get out of that one, have to jump to the pits.
Let's take a look at it here. This is where Guido's championship hopes come to a close. It's side-by-side racing off through Triple Gulch, turn number 1, 2, and 3 at the start of this race. There is a sideways snap from Montgomery, unfortunately for Guido. Wrong place at the wrong time, caught up in the crossfire. Nothing he could have done wrong. Nothing he could have done really to avoid that incident. Let's take a look at from the air. There's a snap from Montgomery. Locks up the fronts to try and keep that car going in a straight line. Unfortunately for Guido, caught up in the crossfire. That is such a shame for the both of them. They had a good shot to win. They're running 1-2 at the time, and now the battle for the win is completely blown open.
Yeah, blown open for sure now. So unfortunately, Guido's been taken out of that one. Montgomery taken out of that one. You could see him in that shot there, wrestling the wheel in the car, trying desperately not to run into his competitor there. And unfortunately, the car just gave him a little bit of a snap, and he just went to try to save it. Did exactly the right thing there and locked it down instead of really snapping it and ending up facing the wrong way. But they were at pretty close quarters at that moment. There's really nothing Guido or Chris could do, I think, to to avoid that one, and that is going to take them out. But Tortello now is going to lead us around round 11 here. Alan Degas is just behind him, Brian Shazinski, and then Trip Isley just behind them. Michelle Lynn is also in 5th place here. So we have a race on our hands here for sure. That is going to shake up the field a little bit, but it could also provide us with maybe not a different winner today, but definitely some more shuffling around in the field a little bit.
Yeah, so a little bit of shuffling that we expect throughout this race. Nothing too out of the norm. It's a Formula V race. You're going to see the drivers get some moves done on each other moment after moment, turn after turn, certainly lap after lap. But this field up at the front is definitely packed in. Here's how it stands right now. Tortello is your race leader. Alan Degas leads it in the Masters category, slotted directly behind him in 2nd overall. And to those tuning into the series for the first time, there is no difference in cars between your classes. It is just a driver classification. Same exact equipment, just a matter of setups and the squiggly bit behind the wheel, operating the pedals, shifting the gears, and turning the wheel. Degas, he's been so close to wins overall here in this series before that you got to imagine he is going to try and seize this opportunity. He also does very well at this track. I distinctly remember him getting some fantastic runs, performances, results here at this place over the past few seasons. I feel like this is a happy hunting ground for Degas, and certainly going to try and flex his muscles here as he looks to try and usurp your reigning and probably soon to be champion here once again in the Formula Vs.
Yeah, absolutely. Tortello leading us here, and you got to think, if I was a betting man, I would probably put my money on the number 1 of Tor to take this one in a pinch, but you never know. Alan Degas has really had a strong push here this season, and even last season as well. He's really been quick out there, and Brian Shazinski as well could take today's race. So you never really know that this early in it. We do still have a lot of time left, but we know Tor's very, very good at managing these races, A, and then B, just being there when it matters at the end. So it's going to be a hard combination to beat there. Just looking at the bottom of our screen there, tomorrow on SMB, we will be doing the SRFs at Aragon. At least the motorcycle layout, a little cut off our screen there, unfortunately. And then have F4 at Phillip Island, I believe the day just, or sorry, that'll be on Tuesdays at 10:20, and that's going to be well, like you like to say there, Ron, it's our sort of championship week, isn't it? Where we're going to be wrapping up SRG, wrapping up SRF, wrapping up V's all next week there. So should be a pretty good one. Make sure you tune in with us for those.
And of course, we'll have the season finale for the Spec Race Fords as well. So a lot of champions to be crowned here on Slow Motion Broadcasting Champions Week here on SMB. Side-by-side battling ended exactly the way that it started. Tortello in front of Alan Degas. Brian Shazinski involved in this as well, along with Trip Isley in 4th. Michelle Lynn slotted in 5th, fittingly in that number 5 car. Starting to lose out on a bit of time, though. Saw her run wide, heading her way out of turn number 3, and looking to remain close to those drivers. Once you break out of that 1 second boundary, that's usually when the other draft starts to lose its effectiveness and you start to drop back. Although we have this 4-car battle, we'll call it right now. There is one that's a little bit crazier in the mid portion. We can jump to Angel Soto, Martin Visser, Josh Justice, Brian Hansen, Nick Tullo, Jason Grider, Ethan Orr, any of them, because they're all this same little cluster of cars right now. Oh boy, side-by-side racing, heading off through turn number 7, down the hill. That was Josh Justice finding himself in a little battle right there. That was himself and Brian Hansen. It resulted in Justice remaining in P9, but this is a nice little train that we got going on right now. Trains in a Formula V race? Where have I heard that before?
Yeah, well, this kind of happens every week in one fashion or another, doesn't it? And around a track like this that is more technical, you're not going to see it maybe quite as much, but with today's sort of fractured field here after that incident in the beginning and a little bit of shuffling around, you have the likes of Ethan Orr and Jason Grider, Joshua Justice, maybe a little bit out of place today. So it's going to be an interesting one here in this mid-pack to see how they do sort it out. This is when, patience is a virtue now. You need to kind of just breathe and just embrace the race and let it come to you, as our friend Tom O'Gorman likes to say, a good saying there of embracing the race here as the double 99 is going to go up the inside of the 444 of Martin Visser there and take that position from Brian Hansen just behind him. So we're going to remember that Martin Visser is playing for points here today. There's very fine margins in that S2 category, and it's really going to matter as to where he finishes in relation to those other drivers around him.
Yeah, that's certainly going to be the case. Drivers eyeballing exactly what they can do in the championship here as we get towards the end of this campaign. As that's Martin Visser around, he gets stacked up there, but I believe Brian Hansen got a piece of that drama along with Stephen Westcott. A slowdown for Martin Visser. They somehow were able to get themselves sorted after all that without, the world-ending stuff. Breaking the fourth wall right now, folks. That was potentially the worst time for my colleague to go and take a quick trip off to the restroom right there. But we shall go on, never stop, never stopping, whatever the other line goes like, as we follow Josh Justice here in the 099. I want to thank you all for tuning into the action here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. Dan Szynski on baby duty here today, was tuning into the show a bit earlier on for the Campbell Veterans Memorial Foundation charity race earlier on. Tam, who's turning into that as well, along with Michelle, saying, watch out for that Michelle lady. She's a menace in the YouTube chat a little bit earlier on. So, but Michelle kind of just sound herself short there. She's been able to put together a strong drive right now, although battling up towards the front has maybe fallen away from her, as Brian Szynski having the grip fall away from him as he headed his way off through turn number 1, 2, and 3. Had a sideways, slideways moment through the turn, nearly lost out on a couple of places, but works out rather well. Josh, I will say, in your brief period of absence, we did see little schmozzle breakdown involving Martin Visser heading down into turn number 6. May need to load up a replay. Got sideways, kind of broke up that little pack of cars that we were all battling, which was starting to get quite good. Here it is, heading down into the turn, through into 6, tries to go for it on the inside of Josh Justice, sideways through the turn. He gets clipped. I believe that was Brian Hansen that clipped him there. That could have been a heck of a lot worse, though.
Yeah, I think you're right with Brian Hansen there, who actually did unfortunately clip him here. Let's go on board. And you can see first-person view here just how kind of impossible it is to avoid that one, and just unfortunately clipped him there on the inside. Yeah, pretty unfortunate, and it seems to be sort of a similar thing that's happening there. It looks like a little bit of kind of low-speed spins kind of deal there, where the car just gets a little bit, maybe a little bit of weight taken off it in an awkward position, and just has sort of a low, kind of slow, lazy spin. And those are the worst, honestly, inside the car. They just feel terrible. It feels like you've really done something wrong, or somebody robbed something from you every once in a while. You're kind of sitting there shaking your head, wondering exactly how this happened, how I ended up sideways on the track here. It didn't feel like it was about to happen. And then you all of a sudden something. About that, I got a dog screaming in the background here.
Scully!
The dog Scully. Somebody just knocked on the door here, I think, and yeah, my wiener dog lost it.
Well, we'll let you get Scully dealt with right now. Yeah, I was just gonna say these are the thoughts that pop into my head here on these broadcasts, comparing what we've seen so far here with those sort of low-speed spins. I always talk about in GT3s, where it's that kind of spin where there is literally nothing you can do from your perspective behind the wheel to change the racing fate. You are going to go around. No matter what you do with the throttle, the brake, the clutch, the steering wheel, doesn't matter, downshift, upshift, you're going to spin around. That's kind of been what we see here in this race. There's a difference between a low-speed spin and a high-speed spin. The low-speed spins are more agonizing. The high-speed spins, you're going in a straight line all of a sudden, you're backwards, in the barrier, in the gravel trap, in a cloud of dust and steam with underwear that probably do need a change. But it's the difference I think I can describe with noise, shall we here. So, high-speed spin, it's like a high-frequency screech, that's a high-speed spin. That's pretty much what goes through a racer's mind when that goes down. Low-speed spin, that's more of a low-frequency croak. That's that's kind of what you've got right now. We've had a lot of instead of a here in this race. This does not even sound like English.
Yeah, I definitely came back at a bit of an odd time there, for sure. That is the inner monologue of a spin. I'm assuming there, and I think I can probably buy into that a little bit. I did take care of the wiener dog. She seems to be just fine, by the way. If anybody was worried, it was just a package being delivered to the door, and she's trying to protect our honor here. That's all that is. So she'll be fine. But Tortello still leading out front here, only by about 4/10. Not really a whole lot of action up front, other than Alan DeGassis making that leap in front of Brian Szynski, I believe, back and forth with Brian Szynski there for a moment, still leading in front of him. And of course, Michelle Lin just falling off the back of this group a little bit here, but still doing very well in fifth place. Kurt Nunez just behind her. So pretty much standard fare here so far. It's really just about surviving this track sometimes, isn't it, Ron?
Yeah, no, it really is a matter of saying, to finish first you have to finish here in this race. Even if you aren't looking to finish in first, if you're looking to finish in ninth, you just have to be there at the very end to have a chance. Although it has been a bit of a tough race, only 2 drivers are out at the current moment, and also 2 drivers involved in that turn 1, 2, and 3 schism, shall we say? I'm not sure what the correct technical term is there between Chris Montgomery and Guido Marzuki. I guess it works out. Well, there's probably a better technical term that I can use, but schism works, and that also sounds kind of funny. Kerfuffle, yeah, I think that could probably do the trick. Shenanigans, potentially, if I want to sound like a radio announcer from the 1950s. The hell am I talking about? Nick Tullo did drop down just a few moments ago. He slotted in 14th, did lose out on a bit of time and a bit of position. So clearly the troubles for this racetrack have not been limited to few. Everybody is knowing what it's like to run around this racetrack with tires that are probably screeching, and certainly a track that is still continuing to run at some pretty high temperatures. We saw that it was 116 degrees Fahrenheit to start this broadcast. It's now at 117. 1 degree means everything. As keeping an eye on your top 4 pack, Tortello, Alan Degassis, Brian Szynski, Tripp Isley still involved in this here as well. Tripp, nice to see him out there on the racetrack in that number 30 machine. Talked about it right towards the top end of the show. Part of Formula V royalty in real life, part of the Isley family that has been racing Formula Vs just within the boundaries of the United States for many, many moons. We've got a lot of families like that. Of course, Dan Szynski, part of the Szynski family, his dad Bill, his brother Brian. We've got an incredible community of racers, both with experience, obviously in sim and in real life as well. Here's one of them. It's Josh Justice, real life spec racer Ford driver here in the SCCA, battling with Angel Soto right now, right on board with that driver of the number 55 machine, looking to get a good run as he heads his way out of that final turn, up the hill, across the stripe very soon. Angel Soto closing in that gap, going to get a nose out as they head their way across the stripe, but Josh Justice going to try and keep that momentum rocking and rolling there on the outside line, but Angel Soto slams that door right shut in his face.
Yeah, sorry about that. I had my mic muted there on that last one. But yeah, Angel Soto going to get by Joshua, just having a little bit of a moment there in the latter half of the track, able to kind of get up behind him and then pull that draft down the straightaway and get in front of him. So moving up a position there. His next victim could be Kurt Nunez up there in the 918. We'll keep an eye on that one for you. But moving back in the field a little bit here, Jason Grider, Brian Hansen, Stephen Westcott, all fighting for position here as well. Probably the closest pack of 3 cars we have on the track at the moment, although that is going back and forth with those drivers in the top 3 or 4 positions as well. But still all kinds of fighting going on around here. Just over halfway done this one now in a 30-minute race, about 17 minutes, 30 seconds in. I'd still be out there, kind of just piloting around, trying to stay alive until, the wee hours, and then maybe make a pounce on the driver in front of me. But I don't think this pack will be catching any other pack, so they are pretty much just fighting for the positions that are around them at the moment.
Yeah, so pretty settled for those drivers, as Dan Szynski asking whether or not Jim will be with us here in the broadcast booth. He's unfortunately suffering from a cold here today, so unable to join us here on the show. But I feel like it would be fun to have some special guests here on these broadcasts. A decent amount. I remember a couple of years ago we had Jason Green commentating it. I believe it was a Formula V race. It was back in the way back days. It was a 3-man booth with Jason, our old meowing buddy, Mr. Adam Thompson, and myself on the call for that. And Josh, I believe you were the one working production there for that. Whenever it was Adam and I together in a booth, I think I said it on the Racing Line podcast one time. It's not even like itchy and scratchy like us two or with me and Charles. With Adam and I, that's basically murder and accessory. That's usually how those shows would go, but I digress. Gary Cattell found himself in a little battle there. That was himself and Paul Korodesky as they headed their way down the start-finish stretch into turn number 1. I gotta say, this racetrack... as that's a spin there from Elhorn as he heads his way through turn number 5. I was just gonna say, this racetrack is pretty racy for these competitors.
Yeah, it definitely is. I like this place. It's a bit of a hustle. It's got some interesting and kind of fun sections to it that I enjoy, at least. I know it does kind of split the community a little bit, but I've always found this place races pretty well. You do need to put the time in. There is some kind of awkward corners and stuff that you need to work out before you decide to race around here and kind of really get your foot right before you decide to go and take it on. But I would imagine most of our drivers here know exactly what they're doing out there around this particular track. So really, it's just about, at this stage of the race here with only about 10 minutes left-ish, you're kind of just making sure that you're keeping everything copacetic. You don't want to be too springy quite yet. You don't want to slow down too much, although there is a pretty big gap between this pack and the next one. There's really no point in going side by side quite yet. So you're going to want to kind of stay line astern and just race the track. Keep your eyes forward. Try to stay comfy in your rig, and just race that track in front of you, and hope that it all works out. You don't get one of those slow, lazy spins that seems to be grabbing a few of the drivers out here. So easy to do in a couple of the corners here.
As we get into the final 10.5 minutes, we're going to focus on the other racing action very, very soon. In the meantime, though, I do want to apologize. There's been a tremendous amount of racket outside my bedroom window. I'm not sure what in the world. It sounds like somebody's trying to cut down a tree outside my window. Trying to do it with an electric weed whacker. So I'm not sure whether there's some yard work that's going on in the backyard that I wasn't made aware needed to be done. But either way, that's been picked up on the microphone. No, somebody is not trying to blend a pack of Skittles or whatever candy option you choose, whatever candy gives us the most amount of money. Yeah, if you're curious, that's exactly what's going down. But we have ourselves a 9-minute dash to decide this race, the second to last round of this championship. Tortolo really doesn't have much to lose. His main championship rival is out of this race, down in 20th. It was already looking like he had one hand and maybe a couple extra fingers on top of that trophy right now, but heading off into the season finale with an even larger gap, it may be his for the taking, unless Guido can use this as a drop round and somehow have that be his benefit. Whenever we introduce the drop rounds, that's when it starts to lose me. I will say this with the utmost confidence. I've been covering the Formula Vs for upwards of about 3 years now. I did my first ever Weekend Warriors broadcast way back in March of 2023. I still can't wrap my brain around the championship format. It's not dumb like NASCAR's format, but it is confusing to my itty bitty pea brain.
Yeah, I leave these things to the admins. That's their job. Someday maybe I will try to learn that side of things. Honestly, they're a lot smarter than me down there, able to structure all this stuff out and how points are going to work and how many points you're going to get and what round you're in. And oh my goodness, it's a lot of work out there. And obviously on our end too, gathering the points, making sure we go through them and stuff. But actually, building the structure of those things and how it works and everything's a little bit above my pay grade for sure as well, Ron. But that group up front there, still pretty much just line astern here. Stephen Westcott looking now ahead at Jason Grider. Looks like he's actually slipped a little bit here. So this second pack, that was kind of the closest one on the track of 3 cars here. Looks like they're not really gaining on each other too much either. So we'll keep an eye on Brian Hansen up there and Stephen Westcott, because they are fighting for position or for points. Martin Visser actually back in 13th place now, a little bit off the back of here, so not really grabbing maybe the points load that he would have wanted today, but still keeping in it.
See, the way that I always decide how things are going to work out in the championship points for it's kind of like like a Roman emperor looking over the Colosseum and telling you whether you win or whether you lose with a thumbs up or a thumbs down. That's how I grade drivers' performances here in the broadcast booth. it helps my singular brain cell named Gerald from getting too overwhelmed. Tortello, your leader still, with Alan DeGassis, Brian Szynski, and Trip Isley directly behind. Brian, off the back of that win 1 week ago at VIR, looking to do exactly the same thing here in this race. A podium result would still be good, but I think he's eyeballing just a little bit more, and he has the cushion to be able to do it as well. Michelle Lynn, who we saw kind of be involved in this battle a bit earlier on, lost the draft, and it shows you how strong and powerful the draft is here in these Formula Vs. Once she lost that, it was pretty much a game, set, match. She is down nearly 10 seconds back of your lead pack. Really nothing that she's doing wrong. She's hitting her marks as she usually does here in these Formula Vs, but it's that almighty, all-powerful, all-knowing draft. Once you lose it in these Formula Vs, you're not going to be able to unleash much power because they have about as much power as your standard microwave. So Michelle looking to hold on to a top 5 as we get towards the end of this race. But with about 5.5 minutes left to go here in this event, we're keeping an eye on the battle, of course, for your lead. Keeping an eye on some other battles right now, like this one here between Kurt Nunez, your current second place runner in the Masters category, and Josh Justice, your current P8 runner in this race overall. I'm not seeing a battle develop in the Spec 2 category, as Brian Hansen is your current leader over there. He's feeling quite pleased about his chances as it stands currently. Comfortable gaps throughout the field for some. Others, meanwhile, running about as nervous as a cat in a room full of rocking chairs as we get towards the end of this race. Actually, I'm going to amend my statements. That was me, misreading the graphics there. Brian Hansen is not feeling comfortable. He's about as nervous as a cat in a room full of rocking chairs, as it's only 0.2 of a second the gap to himself and Jason Grider, P2 in class, P11 overall. There it is in question. I was looking at the gap between Ethan Orr and Brian Hansen, and my poor Gerald got confused.
Hey, it happens. You look at these timing towers for as long as we have today, or maybe even as long as we do all the time. They just get a little confusing every once in a while. You can look up there and whoop, what was I looking at a minute ago? And that's kind of the way it happens. But we do have pretty much all our S2 drivers line astern there, 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th place. Martin Visser bringing up the rear there, and then we have our new driver George there down in 16th as well. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen with this group here, but they are tight enough to make something happen in this final 4 minutes or so that we have left. We could see a pass here from JG, or even maybe Martin Visser be able to take, or Stephen Westcott, sorry, be able to take the both of them, depending on what happens. But up front, we are getting a little bit closer now. Side by side, Alan DeGassis has decided to make a run, at least on the outside, into T1 here with Tortello. Not going to make that one work yet, but definitely showing his nose, maybe his intentions for the coming laps here before this one's done. Brian Szynski just sitting back there kind of observing everything at this moment, able to see maybe where the weakness is that he can monopolize at some point. Same thing with Trip Isley in the 30 there, also ready to pounce if something is to transpire in front of him. Angel Soto a little bit farther behind, about 11 seconds, not going to be able, even if there was a little incident here, might not be able to make that gap up in time. But we are in the wee hours now, Ron. So now is when I would be thinking, hey, where is that weakness of that driver in front of me, and how can I use it to get in front of him?
Trying to find a weakness in Tortello is very tough, though. We know the kind of driver that he is. There's a reason why he's got that number 1 on the car. There's a very good reason why he's probably going to have that number 1 on his car for quite a long time here in this series. So it's going to be tough for Alan DeGassis, but you know that he's going to try and find every single opportunity, as will the likes of Brian Szynski and Trip Isley directly behind them as well. This one is very tough in terms of trying to get some moves done, because unlike VIR 1 week ago, where you're relying on the draft quite heavily, even though it's only one main straightaway there, that being the start-finish straightaway, it is still so disproportionately long to the rest of the racetrack that it is a game of drafting chicken Here, though, you got the start-finish straightaway, and in terms of fantastic draft opportunities, that's kind of it. So you got to get the moves done in a technical way. Got to do them out there on the road. Got to get the moves done heading off into the turns through the braking zones. Battle, scrape, and claws side by side throughout many of them, and you could be golden. Now's a sideways snap for Soto. He loses out on a spot to Kurt Nunez. May lose out on a little bit more unless he fights back here. A bit of a curve whack there as he headed his way out of turn number 4. Nunez now losing out on some time. A shot. Justice was looking to stick his nose into that battle there as well. Michelle Lin runs wide on the exit at turn number 5. Once again opens the door for Soto to break his way up into 5th. 2x2, a 4-pack of V's heading into turn number 5. Nunez gets tripped up, ran a little bit deep into the turn, and Josh Justice going to say, thank you very much, I'll take full advantage of that. And Ethan Orr now going to stick his nose into this fight as well. As all this has been going on, Tortolo now leading by 0.8 of a second as he heads his way towards that white flag.
Yeah, it looks like we had a little bit of a shake-up here as well. He's going to break away from that draft a little, but back in this pack here, Angel Soto, Joshua Justice, Kurt Nunez side by side. Michelle Lin is under full attack here now in the wee hours of the race. We should be coming across the line here momentarily for our white flag, and this will be our last lap of this race here. So we'll try to keep an eye on both of these packs, but it looks like Tortello might have just enough done here to be able to hold on to this one until the end of this race. We'll move back a little bit here as they come across the line in this other pack, and Joshua Justice is going to get it done by, it looks like he's going to try on the outside of Michelle in here, while Angel Soto up the middle run.
Oh, and look at this pack. This is madness as they head their way through the first 3 turns for the final time here in this race. Michelle Lin in the thick of it, feeling some pressure from Josh Justice. Now Angel Soto looking to try and clip the coupon, get the 2-for-1 deal 3 wide as they head their way down the hill into turn number 5 for the final time here in this race. Soto gonna have to try and get a good exit. Michelle Lin not getting a good one at all. Contact there, car get hooked around. That right there is Kurt Nunez. Angel Soto. Oh, Soto with a massive hit there into the wall. Ethan Orr was the main driver that got collected in that as well. Oh, that was every single thing that you expect to go wrong, going wrong in the blink of an eye. Meanwhile, up towards the front of the field, Tortolo able to withstand any sort of pressure, heads his way up through turn number 11 at the top end of the racetrack for the final time here in this race, unless Alan DeGassis has something major. They head their way into the heavy braking zone at turn number 14 for the final time. Looks like Tortolo is going to win this race and put his second hand on that championship with a week left in the tank. Tortolo heads his way out to the start-finish straight away with the drivers getting caught up in the madness behind. Tolo wins, but it could be a fight for second between DeGassis and Szynski as they head their way towards a line. DeGassis threw a pretty aggressive block I saw as they headed their way there as they wreck across the line. DeGassis ends up in second, winning in the Masters category. Szynski rounds out your podium in third. Josh Justice gonna win out in that frantic battle towards the end, right outside of your top runner positions. And that's Justice finishing in P5. Michelle Lin ends up in 6th. Ethan Orr in P7. Gotta take a look at this incident. There's a contact with Orr. It hooks Nunez off into the side of Soto, and then those 2 cars get stuck together with the iracing glue as that horrendous hammering blow for Soto into the wall.
Yeah, Michelle Lin very lucky to get away with that one as well. They were millimeters off of her, and there would have been nothing she could have done about it. Really happy to see Michelle not get caught up in that one for sure at the end here, as we're getting most of our drivers across the line now. A little unfortunate there at the end, a little bit of iracing glue, a little bit of net code perhaps there as well, but I think they probably would have made contact either way. So it's one of those scenarios there where just 2 drivers trying to use the same piece of track and unfortunately made contact. But Tortello, gonna walk away with this one pretty handily there and at the end of the day. Unfortunately, taking out some of his competitors there at the beginning, and Chris Montgomery and Guido Marzucci, who would have probably given him a good run for his money. Not to say that Alan Bryan did not, and Tripp up at the front there did not, but it would have been a bit of a different story, I think, with a couple other drivers in there, as now we are all across the line. Angel Soto going to finish this one with a meatball.
Yes, I am curious here, Josh, if we could take a look at the replay towards the end of the race and take a look at that move that Alan DeGassis attempted there on Brian Szynski towards the end of the race. I had a feeling it was going to get frantic between those two. I said that they were caught up in each other's stuff. As you can see, that was just a sledgehammer shot there into the wall. As if we can just reel it back a little bit farther than this. It was they wrecked heading across the line. Well, I'll try and get that reeled up here very, very soon. See, our wonderful production software usually picks up accidents, overtakes, usually doesn't pick up defensive maneuvers, as I will say that tentatively, because I think I saw some pretty interesting maneuvers coming towards the line. We'll run it back from here. This is a bit earlier on in the final lap. At this point in the lap, it was pretty much it was a fairly full-on conclusion that it was going to be Tortolo winning this race. This was through 10 into 11 right there. DeGassis tried to go for it as he headed his way into the turn, but I think he just overshot his stuff a little bit. Compromises the exit there as well. That was a 1-2 punch of a bad run all through that turn, and you can see Brian Szynski sensing the opportunity. You can see him running that defensive line, trying to stay with it, be proactive in that situation, but as they headed their way across the stripe, Szynski had a fantastic run, and DeGassis, what in the world?
Wow, that's one for the stewards for sure. That's not something we like to see out there, and a little bit surprising from the likes of Alan DeGassis. I think we'll move on quickly from that. Yeah, unfortunate.
And I'll tell you what, I get flashbacks to a couple of seasons ago at Phillip Island when I saw a similar block there end up causing an accident as they headed their way towards the line, and I believe it was Alan DeGassis, a driver involved in that there.
Yeah, I got caught up with him once in FF, very similar as well. So it wouldn't be the first time, I don't think. I believe that's one for the stewards there in the wee hours of the race. Truth be known, very similar incident with Alan DeGassis and myself in an FF race a season or two ago. So maybe something about the end of the race there. But moving on from that, not something you want to see there. That did look a little bit like an intentional block, whereas the one I'm speaking of, it was more of an accident, I think. But yeah, not something you want to see at the end there. If somebody's gonna run on you, moving over and hitting them on purpose is just not something you want to see.
Yeah, no, so there are dents in both of those cars, both from the accident as they headed their way across the stripe, and us even tempting fate by touching that with the 10-foot pole. So we're going to swiftly and abruptly move on, shall we? We'll take a look at your race results here for round 11 of the Formula V Weekend Warriors here at Lédenon, and it's Tortolo kind of tightening his grasp on that championship here this season. He wins it over Alan DeGassis in P2. Brian Szynski runs at your podium in third. This is as they came across the stripe. I'm just going to leave that be. Trip Isley ends up in fourth when it was all done there. Josh Justice, the best of the rest, shall we say, here in this race. I got to say, a good fight back there from Josh towards the end. He was one of the later drivers to arrive at the scene of that battle, and he was still able to come out on top. Michelle Lynn, clean race for her. She ends up in sixth. I was worried after last week when she got struck by a falling anvil that it was just my presence here in these shows that was causing the falling anvils to come down. She ends up in P6, though. We didn't talk about her too much here in that race. The commentator shinks did not apply. Ethan Orr ends up in seventh, the other driver, who I gotta say is very lucky the fact he got away from that incident right towards the end there. Kurt Nunez ends up in eighth, second driver in the Masters category, by the way. Brian Hansen is in ninth, winning in the Spec 2 category in the process, with Jason Grider completing your top 10.
Yeah, and then 11th, we have Stephen Westcott in 12th. Nick Tullo, Masters driver. Martin Visser will bring home 13th. Paul Corradeschi in 14th. And 15th, we have Gary Kittle. 16th, today's sponsor from BFI Consulting is Wayne Buttermore in 16th place. George Ethron in Ethorn? I'm going to try to get that right. Ethron, I think. In the 309 in 17th place. Angel Soto will bring home 18th. If we can move on here to 19th. Guido Marzucci, unfortunately, not going to finish the one. Taken out fairly early with Chris Montgomery in an incident early on.
And so those are your results here for round number 11 of the Formula V Weekend Warriors season here at Lédenon. We're going to have a quick little chat with Tortolo, who had a pretty Uneventful end to that race, and got to see some chicanery going on in his rear view mirror, which was pretty much where he could see a car throughout this race. He was up towards the front pretty much from about lap 4 when that incident took place between Chris Montgomery and Guido Marzucchi through to the very end. Tortello now joining us here in the broadcast booth. Tor, welcome in. First off, congratulations on that win with Falling Anvil coming down on Guido. We suspect that it's probably looking good for you to maybe win the other championship here this season, but we'll focus on this race for now. How was it out there? Because that looked like a pretty challenging one here at Lédenon.
Yeah, Lédenon, it's just a really hard track to kind of keep your focus. It's one of the most one-line tracks that's offered on iRacing, so you got to just be so careful to get your braking markers right, your turn-in points right every single lap. So yeah, it was just really a struggle just keeping everything together for 30 minutes and not letting Alan past. Yeah, so yeah, pretty mentally taxing, but it was a good race.
Yeah, it looked like a tough one to manage. I do want to ask you about the track temperatures here. I think it was 117 that I saw as the highest, 117 Fahrenheit. I think that's roughly in the 40s Celsius wise. That's definitely a bit on the toastier end, not the highest I've ever seen, but still a bit on the upper end of normal. But around a racetrack like this as well, where you never really have a chance to catch your breath, how were those tires feeling as we got towards the end?
Oh, they were certainly slidey, and I imagine that's what contributed to that little unfortunate incident at the start there. Yeah, it was just really kind of hard to keep a proper line, keep everything under control. So yeah, it was a miracle that we all made it to the finish there.
Yeah, so Christmas Miracle taking place in the month of May. Who'd have thunk? But Tor, I do want to ask you about the next round of the championship. The season finale here for Season 2 of the Formula V Weekend Warriors here in 2026. That's going to be at Brands Hatch. Have you driven at Brands Hatch in real life? Because I know you've done plenty of races around Alton Park, but Brands Hatch, different end of the UK. Have you raced around there in real life? I remember, I think you have driven around there. I remember seeing videos on it.
Actually, yes, I've been around it in the Indy layout a few times, the Grand Prix circuit once. It's a track that I absolutely adore in real life and in the sim as well. And I've run pretty strongly there in Weekend Warriors for the past few seasons, so yeah, just hoping to wrap up the season with a win.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you out there on the racetrack for one final time here in Season 2 of 2026. Also, I like how in that last question you could literally hear the brain cell firing as I was asking it. But Tor, before we let you go and celebrate this race win, we'll let you give any thank yous or shout-outs.
First and foremost, a big thank you to my content partner, Necronovel, and a big thank you to all the drivers around me today. It was really tough to keep them behind, but it was a great fight. And thank you to you guys at SMB for a great broadcast.
Yeah, it's our treat as always, Tor. Thank you for joining us. Well done on the win, and we hope to see you out there on the racetrack for the season finale, looking to cap up a championship there in the UK.
Thank you so much.
And that right there was Tortello, our race winner here. Josh, it doesn't look like anyone else is going to look to have a chat with us here before we wrap things up, which usually we would be upset about, but considering we've been on the air for the past 3 hours, I think that may be a slight break for us. So I'll give you the floor to give your thoughts on this race here at Lédenon before we wrap things up.
Yeah, another pretty good one around Lédenon, I think. Another win from Tortello, of course. Got to thank today's sponsor, Wayne Buttermore and BFI Consulting. Some great finishes out there from everyone, and we're really looking forward to Championship Week here coming up on Slow Motion Broadcasting. Got a little graphic here we can pop up tomorrow. Spec Racer Ford at Aragon. I will be on the call for that one with Guido Marzucchi and Charles Beauchel. Phillip Island in the F4 car. On Tuesday. On Wednesday, we have F3 at Long Beach. That'll be a good one. Love Long Beach. And then we're back for the Formula Vs at Brands Hatch. And then our final round of the Spec Racer Ford as well on June 7th. And then you can see there's a little bit of gaps there, some dark areas that will be getting filled up very shortly with some new series that are coming to Slow Motion Broadcasting, as well as our return series in the Weekend Warriors and Sim Racers group and AMS and much much more coming your way. So pretty awesome day today, Ron, with the whole 3 hours of broadcasting with you together. Definitely like to thank you for being in the booth with me, keeping me going, keeping my my brain activated here and everything else. And it was a really good day. So happy to have been a part of everything here. Happy to be a part of the Formula V's every week. Looking forward to the roundup. And I think that's it for me today.
Yeah, I think that's just about it for me as well. I will say, though, keeping your brain active, usually co-commentators of mine say that being in the booth with me is like shutting their brain off. And yeah, but I think with all that taken care of, again, thanks to Wayne Baltimore and BFI Consulting for sponsoring this broadcast here of the Formula V Weekend Warriors. I want to thank you all for tuning into the action here on SMB today. If you didn't get the opportunity to take a look at the 2026 Campbell Veterans Memorial Foundation broadcast, charity race earlier on here today, I would highly recommend. That was a wonderful event to be a part of, and some of the drivers, the names, the faces, and the stars that you see here in the SMB world were out there on the racetrack for that. But after this broadcast here for round number 11, I think that'll just about do it. So for myself, Ron Maunz, and Josh Wilkie working the comms and the cams with me on today's show, I say thank you all so very much for tuning into the action here on Slow Motion Broadcasting today, and we hope to see you all wherever it is in the not too distant future.